Dina, you talked a little bit about, your family and your family experiences. How did your family explain those differences to you?
Well, it's kind of sometimes it's a little bit of an uncomfortable thing. My mom grew up in Indianapolis and in the 40s and 50s, and neighborhoods were segregated. So when she went to school with just a handful of whites, and everyone else was from her primary neighborhood. My dad was from the racially segregated South. He's from Texas, and he grew up in a very, very, very small town. And he wasn't even, his parents didn't allow him to go to the movies because they were required to sit in the balcony when he was a kid. So he was not a real social man growing up. So when it came to me and my brother, we were making all these friends with the white children in our classrooms, and just things like being invited over to spend the night or going places. My parents did not want me to go. They were, and they're, in my mind, they feel like open people, but they didn't want us to get hurt. And they felt like our associations and getting too close to the children in our classrooms was going to create a climate where we would be hurt. And we were told, be on your guard and don't be too trusting, because you cannot believe that these kids are your real friends.
Tina, you mentioned a little bit about, not speaking Spanish, and wondering how do you deal with those racial slights even within your own community?
Well, that started when I was a very little girl, because my grandmother only knew Spanish and I only knew English, and she was so distressed that I couldn't speak to her. And then it started from when I was a little girl, and it just kept going because, I look like I look. And I remember going to the grocery store with my grandmother, and I didn't know what she wanted, and the shop girl was just saying, you can't understand your own grandmother? And I go, no. But, and then, it's just something that I've taken numerous Spanish classes. I just can't grab it, I know phrases, I know palabritas, words, I know the present tense, but you know what, that doesn't make me any less Chicana. That doesn't make me any less passionate about my race and where I came from.
Thank you. The next question is for Elaine. You are the director of Ventura County Behavioral Health, and sometimes you probably are the only woman of color in the room. How does that affect your, in the work setting?
I think generally speaking, Asians have it good because, the assumptions about Asians, right? They're really good at math, they're smart, they're not going to give you a lot of trouble, they're going to bring lumpia to your potluck. So I think as an Asian, I kind of have it pretty good. Because the assumptions were positive. But you're right, typically I am not only an only woman, but I am also, I think I'm the only Asian actually when I stop and I think, oh no, that's not true, our CFO, she's actually Filipino. But I do find myself, I read this great book called Quiet, I don't know if you've ever read it, it's about being an introvert in an extrovert world, and they defined something that really made me feel good. Because what I am is a pseudo-extrovert. I have learned since I came to the United States that the behavior that people value here in leadership is a very extroverted kind of behavior, and I've learned to do that. I find it rather exhausting, and I go home and crawl under a blanket. I don't answer the telephone, I don't want to speak to anybody, because in reality, my nature is more of an introvert. But it's what I had to learn how to do to get ahead in this country, and so I did. So as far as having a hard time being the only woman, and the things that I experience are more about being a woman than it has been about being an Asian. Things like if we're having a discussion around the table, I may have said things 2 or 3 times, and then the man sitting next to me will say the same thing I said, and suddenly there's this, wow, what a smart thing this guy just said. And every once in a while, someone with integrity will say, well, actually, Elaine said that, 3 times already. So that, I think it's more of a woman thing for me than it has been about being Asian.
Dina, you work in real estate and housing, insurance. Have you ever faced any discrimination when it comes to those things that we take for granted, like housing and those trust privileges?
Well, I've got 2 parts to that. I've been a State Farm agent since 1991. And in those days, you did a lot of cold calling. You'd call up people and ask them if they could give you a quote. And also, I went to a lot of people's homes to actually give them the quote and sell the insurance. And it never turned into a negative in this respect, but I got to plenty of people's homes, and they're like, oh. I'm like, yes, I'm Dina. Oh, well, come in. And then they would proceed to say, we have some black friends that live around the corner. Do you know Fred Orange? I'm like, no, unfortunately I don't. So a number of rather uncomfortable instances in that. And then the second part, you did bring up something about real estate. And Terry knows my story about a real estate transaction. I bought a home in Ventura in 2003. And I bought a house in a neighborhood that is very desirable in Ventura, and it was perfect for us. The house was perfect, the neighborhood was perfect, it was a block away from the school my son already attended, and this was the best. It's like our dream home. One evening my realtor comes to my house and she calls me up and says, hey, I've got some papers I need you to sign. I need to talk to you for a minute. I'm like, okay, come on over. I'm excited, I'm already packing, I'm getting ready. And she says, I have to tell you that some of the neighbors of the house that you're purchasing came up to the seller and said, we're asking you not to sell this home to this family because they're black. This is in 2003 in Ventura. And from there, my friend Terry, she helped us raise a little hell in the neighborhood. There was a very strong response to that. People were basically put on blast. They were alerted to the idea that this was going on in the neighborhood. It wound up on the radio, it was in the newspaper, a lot of stuff happened from that. And I have to say, out of a negative, it did turn into a pretty positive experience. But one of the things that I found really amazing about that is I got an email from a man who said, and his regarding line said, I'm black in Ventura too. And he said that he and his wife had been home shopping and had been discouraged by neighbors, and that they, were really considering living elsewhere. I had a client tell me, we didn't buy in Ventura for that very reason. I went to the bank where I was signing my loan papers, and the teller said, yes, I'm pretty certain I'm living that situation. She was a Hispanic woman, and she said, my neighbors, I see them whispering to each other, and I see them coming off the street when they see us coming. She goes, I know I'm living that. And then the final example of that I was just flabbergasted, the mom of a schoolmate of my son calls me up and said, oh, are you moving to our street? And I'm like, no. I'm like, what made you think that? She goes, oh, because the man 2 doors down from me is the biggest racist I know. And I thought, and there's a house for sale 2 doors down from me, and I thought for sure it was my street. So, those are the things in the very recent past that you wouldn't be expecting, but that are still alive and well in Ventura County.